Even though we've done videos on both the Avatar shows previously, we thought it would be high time to take another look at the show, but this time with a bit of a more narrow focus, namely on the titular avatars. Who were these people, and what stories of their creations are out there? I'm Adrian, and let's find out in 107 facts about the Avatar. Number 1. With the release of the second Kyoshi novel, we now know the names of 9 avatars. They are in chronological order, and I apologize in advance if I don't know how to pronounce some of these because they are in the books. Wan, Salai, Zeto, Yang Chen, Kuruk, Kyoshi, Roku, Aang, and Korra. Number 2. Of these 9, only Yang Chen, Kuruk, and Kyoshi had the same voice actors in all of their appearances across both shows. Not unimpressive, considering both Kuruk and Kyoshi have speaking roles in The Legend of Korra, however, only briefly. Number 3. And Aang cinches the win on a technicality by having had 3 voice actors. He was voiced by Mitchell Musso in the unaired pilot, Zach Tyler Eisen in The Last Airbender, and D.B. Sweeney during his appearances in The Legend of Korra, both as old and very old Aang. Number 4. Before the episodes of Beginnings, there was a lot of speculation on the exact origins of the Avatar. The creators had a book in which they wrote down all their ideas for the show, humbly called the Series Bible, which was 65 pages long and not to be confused with the released version of the IP Bible. In their own version, they wrote that the Avatar is the incarnation of the spirit of the planet in human form, though they would later drop that idea. Number 5. That being said, there's another oblique hint coming from the title screen, with a Chinese phrase at the top and bottom of the map translating to "powers are divided into 4, all under heaven is guided by one," and the characters above the title itself translating to "the divine being who has descended upon the world." Number 6. Katara discovers in Wan Shi Tong's library that at least one of the avatars was left-handed. Which one, however, we don't know, not even if it's one of the named ones or one preceding those. Number 7. Back to the avatars themselves. Of them all, Salai is the one we know the least about, given that they're only briefly mentioned in a conversation between Kyoshi and Yoon. We don't know when they lived, which nation they were from, and as you might have surmised by now, if they were a man or a woman. Number 8. All we know is that they're remembered as one of the better avatars, considering Yoon mentions them in one breath with Yang Chen. They're remembered, especially when Kyoshi was still young, to be a great avatar. Number 9. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So let's go back to the beginning, to when Wan first merged with Rava. The order in which Wan learned to master the elements would end up becoming the avatar cycle: fire, air, water, earth. Number 10. Similarly, by the time he faced Vaatu, his wardrobe had amassed the colors of the 4 elements. His robe was orange for the air, his sash blue for water, his armbands green for earth, and his scarf red for fire. Number 11. The time span in which Wan learned to mend the other 3 elements after his native one is broadly similar to the time Aang had to master his 3 remaining ones, about a year. Number 12. Observant viewers may have actually caught on that Wan's name would translate to 10,000 in Mandarin Chinese, given that Wan Shi Tong says the meaning of his name multiple times. However, this word is frequently used in a non-literal manner to suggest infinite or uncountable. Number 13. The armor in which Wan is last seen is an interesting design because it's clearly not made for a bender. The raised guard on his pauldron is to make sure that if you take a sword hit to the shoulder, it wouldn't deflect up into the neck, which is far less of a concern for someone who can fight at range like a bender. Number 14. Then again, him wearing armor clearly didn't help him, as he's seen dying in it. Could also be a combination of his old age by that point, but still. Number 15. His death also mirrors Roku's story from the Avatar and the Fire Lord, as both times we see the death of an avatar, it's followed by the screen fading to white and then the cry of a baby. Number 16. Moving on to the next named avatar in the line, Salai. As mentioned, we don't know much about them, but there are clues in their name. A Salai is a needle used by Hindus to keep their turban in place, suggesting an Indian point of origin. Number 17. To use that as a clue for the nation they were born in, this is completely useless because India wasn't a primary inspiration for any of the 4 nations. Number 18. However, we can make an educated guess. They would have to be a relatively recent avatar, given that Yoon expects the uneducated Kyoshi to know who this avatar was. So the most recent unnamed one was the avatar before Zeto, who would have been from the Earth Kingdom. Plus, the Earth Kingdom is huge and enormously culturally diverse, so this seems like a logical option, even if it is conjecture. Number 19. Speaking of Zeto, let's focus on him instead. He was first mentioned by name in The Shadow of Kyoshi, the second novel in the series. However, his first appearance in the show was in the episode The Avatar State. Number 20. That said, it's ironic how he's only demonstrated as bending lava, which is actually a sub-skill of earthbending, not firebending. Number 21. The most unusual thing about his life, though, is the way he chose to bring stability to his nation. At the time of his birth, the Fire Nation was anything but unified, and there was a series of plagues and natural disasters threatening to plunge the entire nation into chaos. Number 22. Zito didn't choose the easy way out though. Rather than beating troublemakers into submission with his enhanced bending prowess, he chose the diplomatic approach, working his way up the ranks to becoming one of the Fire Lord's primary advisors. Number 23. He also refused to be promoted based on his lineage and instead solely wanted to be judged on his achievements, so as to give his advisory role to then Fire Lord Yosor more weight. This hints at him being from a noble background, same as Roku would be centuries later, but again, that's conjecture. Number 24. Here's the most remarkable thing about that though. It worked. His efforts managed to bring stability to a nation in turmoil. He set up relief programs for farmers in times of famine that were still in effect by Kyoshi's time, and brokered a mostly stable peace between noble houses that were ruling different parts of the Fire Nation. Number 25. But with all of that said, because there was a 14-year gap between his first appearance and the reveal of his name, many fans took to calling him Jafar, mostly because he looks more than a little like the villain from Aladdin. Number 26. That said, the actual etymology of his name goes back to the ancient Chinese title of Situ, which can be translated into Minister of the Masses, fitting given how he chose to spend his time. Number 27. Let's move on to Yang Chen, the first airbender avatar we have details on. Before her name was revealed in Book 3, however, she had already appeared in the avatar state, and Brian Konietzko joked that her name was Susan when asked about it at an expo. Number 28. She was born in the Western Air Temple, which suggests a counterclockwise rotation of the origin of air nomad avatars relative to the temples they were born in. Number 29. This isn't a theory that comes completely out of the air though, as we know for a fact that the place of origin for Water Tribe avatars alternates between Northern Tribe and Southern. Number 30. My earlier claim was not a typo. There is a giant statue of Yang Chen at the Eastern Air Temple, but she really was born in the Western one. Number 31. Even though she was an air nomad and believed in pacifism, when Aang asked her for advice on how to deal with Fire Lord Ozai, she replied that it may be necessary for him to put aside his personal feelings for the good of the world. Number 32. Thing is, she practiced what she preached in her own time. Yang Chen's steadfast guidance of the world, presumably with the occasional demonstration of her power as mentioned previously, led to a great era of peace. This is also why she was hailed as a great avatar, even many years after her death. Number 33. Yang Chen even went so far as to make deals with criminals and pirates in order to maintain her peace. But then again, because of her reputation, this worked. Number 34. But this isn't to imply that she was some kind of ultra-violent savage. Part of the reason Yang Chen was so beloved was because of her encouraging nature and her compassion. Number 35. But this brings us to Kuruk. And for the obsessives among us, finally an avatar of whom we know his age. He lived to the ripe old age of 33. Bummer. Number 36. That being said, we don't actually know any dates or ages of the previously discussed avatars, only that Wan lived exactly 10,000 years before Korra. This still doesn't tell us much since we don't know his age during the events of his episodes. Number 37. His name is derived from the Pawnee Native American word meaning bear, possibly a reference to the animal pelt he's seen frequently wearing over his head. Number 38. Kuruk is the most recent avatar who didn't have to deal with any kind of major political conflicts between humans. Instead, he spent most of his time trying to fight off dark spirits crossing between the human and spirit realm. Number 39. He's also the only avatar to appear on screen to not have a known animal companion. Instead, his favorite method of getting around was by sea, creating tidal waves to surf on. Number 40. But for some reason, Kuruk kept this side of his duties a secret to everyone except his spiritual mentor, a fire sage from the Banti tribe. Number 41. Fighting all those spirits took a huge toll on his body, and it greatly contributed to his relatively early death. Number 42. This led to Kuruk being remembered as something of a failed avatar, given his short lifespan and his outward appearance of spending more time using his bending power to impress women. Number 43. The funny thing is, even though we know his age, there's conflicting information out there about him. Ko the Face Stealer mentions to Aang that Kuruk tried to kill him 800 or 900 years ago, which is admittedly a pretty big margin for error, but he only lived about 350 years before the conversation took place. Number 44. Another inconsistency is his fiancée Umi, whose face Ko ended up stealing. She's mentioned briefly in the second Kyoshi novel, but we only ever read about him being together with Heiran, mother to Rangi. Number 45, which is as good a moment as any to move on to Kyoshi, ironically the longest-lived avatar we know of, clocking in at 230 years old when she died. Number 46. This not only makes her the oldest avatar to ever live, but the oldest known human to have lived in this world. Number 47. The exact method in which she obtained this extremely long life is still unknown. We do know that it was taught to her by Lao Ge, one of the outlaws she traveled with, but he sure is vague on the details when it comes to sharing them with the readers. Number 48. We do know that this secret was passed on to at least one other person, Guru Pathik, who was an impressive 150 years old during his appearance in the show. Number 49. Kyoshi has garnered a bit of a split reputation, as her methodology seemed to involve a lot of brute force, but at the same time, she didn't enjoy causing other people pain and suffering, and would frequently go out of her way to prevent bloodshed. Number 50. That having been said, she was quite the badass, one time going so far as using her own blood as war paint when she didn't have anything else handy. Number 51. Kyoshi is the only known avatar to have struggled mastering bending her native element. Number 52. As a teenager, Kyoshi frequently struggled to do precise acts of bending, and was only really good at enormously powerful earthbending moves and all the destruction that would come with that. Number 53. This definitely matches her enormous stature, towering over pretty much everyone she came across. It also follows that she had the largest feet of any avatar, according to the Kyoshi Islanders. Number 54. There was long been a notion that the fully realized avatars are capable of reshaping the geography of the world, but really we only ever see Kyoshi do this. It's possible that even for an avatar, this would be a stretch, given the size of Kyoshi Island, but then again, she had a knack for bending large volumes of earth. Number 55. Also, Kyoshi is, chronologically anyway, the first person we see to use tools to enhance her bending, using her mother's fans to make her earth and air bending even more powerful. Query whether that was fully necessary, but it looks cool. Number 56. Much like her predecessors, Kyoshi had quite the legacy, leaving behind both the Kyoshi warriors and founding the Dai Li. However, after learning what the Dai Li had become, she would express regret in doing so. Number 57. She's the first avatar we know to have had descendants. We know both of her immediate successors did. Korra's still pending, but it's not too late for her. However, we don't know about any children or even descendants of Kyoshi's predecessors. Number 58. If you discount my earlier speculation about Avatar Salai, Kyoshi is the only named avatar to have Earth as their native element. Number 59. She's also the only female known to be capable of lava bending. Of course, with her being an avatar, this is kind of cheating. Number 60. Kyoshi would start something of a tradition for avatars to come, namely defying the rulers of their respective nations. Kyoshi against the 46th Earth King, Roku against Sozin, Aang running away from the elders of the temple, and Korra blowing the starting whistle on a civil war against her own chief. Number 61. She holds the record for having seen the most passes of Zozin's comet, at 3, even if it was called the Great Comet in her time. Lucky time of birth meant she was 12 the first time it passed. Number 62. And with all that said, Kyoshi is also the first known avatar to be openly bisexual. Then again, there wasn't much of a stigma against non-heteronormative relationships in the world at that time, at least not according to Kaya, so maybe it wasn't so unusual. Number 63. Speaking of, Kyoshi's girlfriend, Rangi, has a story worth telling about her design. The first official look we got at her was on the cover of the second novel, but the cover artist was working backwards from a piece of fan art by Tumblr user Kachi95, who based his design on the descriptions in the first novel. Number 64. Let's move on to Roku. He's been somewhat unlucky, because prior to the release of the second Kyoshi novel, it was kind of a toss-up between him and Kuruk, who was considered the worst avatar. But ever since it was revealed Kuruk died because he was fighting spirits, that balance is shifting to Roku's side for letting the 100-year war happen. Number 65. It was his own greatest regret, as he considers himself to be too indecisive. Had he been more determined, he could have stopped Sozin. After all, Sozin delayed his plans for decades precisely because Roku would have been there to stop him. Number 66. Part of Roku's encouraging attitude towards Aang really is him being a genuinely warm and cordial person. But part of that is also because he wants to make sure Aang doesn't make the same mistakes he did, and in fact, even tries to help Aang right Roku's own mistakes. Number 67. His methods frequently seem to involve intimidation, even if he doesn't necessarily follow through with his threat. Him appearing before Jiang, nice little nod to the Book of Exodus there, falls into that category as well, as it's simply a show of force but not a direct threat. Number 68. That scene also makes him one of two people to generate fire that doesn't directly originate from his body, with the other being Jiang. Number 69. Roku's first appearance in the show proper was as a statue in the Southern Air Temple. That said, even though the statues are supposedly all avatars, they don't appear to be placed in the proper order, as the one next to him is definitely not Kyoshi. Number 70. This was changed as in The Legend of Korra, when Jinora is seen in the sanctuary, Aang's statue is standing next to Roku. Number 71. The episode in which Aang first learns airbending is titled Bitter Work, which would later be referenced by Roku as he considered his journey to master the four elements to be bitter work. Number 72. Roku has a, let's say bad habit of destroying important buildings. Even in the few times we see him, he destroyed the throne room of the Fire Nation Palace, and he destroyed the Temple of the Fire Sages twice, once to save Aang and once in his youth when he tried the easy way of mastering the Avatar state. Number 73. Even though he was a firebender, his preferred element seems to be air, as he uses it more than any of the others, both when fighting Sozin and when fighting the volcano. Number 74. We don't exactly know who Roku's parents were, but we can throw an educated guess out there and say that they were both high nobles, given that he was good friends with Prince Sozin before he was revealed to be the Avatar. Number 75. But because Roku's granddaughter Ursa would marry into the Fire Nation royal family, his family tree is by far the most extensive of all the known avatars. Number 76. Moving on to Aang, technically the second longest living avatar after Kyoshi, clocking in at 165 years old at the time of his death. Number 77. However, this is only chronologically, as biologically he was only 66. The stated reason for his relatively early death is that being stuck in the avatar state while frozen in the iceberg for almost a century drained his energy. Number 78. Aang has the most episode titles referring to him, either directly by name or by proxy, coming in at 3. The Boy in the Iceberg, The Avatar Returns, and the finale, titled Sozin Comet Part 4, Avatar Aang. The titles of the first and last episodes mirror his growth from a boy to him becoming a fully realized avatar. Number 79. The number 2 spot is shared by Zuko and Avatar Roku, both being directly referenced in 2 episode titles. Number 80. Creator Michael Dante DiMartino has said that Aang was by far the hardest character to find a good voice actor for. They ended up going for Zach Tyler Eisen, but if you listen closely, you can hear that his voice is notably lower in the last episode when compared to the first.
It lets me control the air currents around my glider and fly. I learned there was another way to defeat him and restore balance.
Number 81. When dubbing the show to Russian, they did exactly what the creators were mocking in the episode The Ember Island Prayers. Aang is voiced by a woman, Olga Zverova. Not only that, she also voices Katara and would later go on to voice Korra. Number 82. Aang's name is spelled out on both the Fire Nation Wanted poster and on the flyers he spreads through Ba Sing Se while looking for Appa. It would literally translate to peaceful soaring. Number 83. Even though Azula shot him in the back with lightning, this isn't the only scar he got from this. There's another scar on the bottom of his left foot where the lightning left his body. Number 84. Aang is of course the titular last airbender, but he wouldn't be the only one to hold that title. Because Korra is 7 years older than Jinora during that period, Tenzin was the last airbender. Number 85. In the original pitch for the series, Aang was supposed to be 10 years old, not 12. He was aged up 2 years at the behest of Eric Coleman, executive at Nickelodeon at the time. He can be seen at his original age in the unaired pilot, where he does appear younger. Number 86. Outside of his skills at bending, Aang seemed to have quite a bit of interest in the arts. He's a skilled and agile dancer and can play both the flute and the sungi horn. However, he admits to being terrible at the latter. Number 87. There might be something resembling the saying birds of a feather flock together, given just how many of his friends were nobles. Toph, Zuko, Bumi, and technically even Katara and Sokka. Maybe the position of Avatar just has an inherent attraction to power. Number 88. Aang actually has his face appear on the Yuans in Republic City. Number 89. The design of Aang's beard as an adult was based on that of Michael Dante DiMartino. Number 90. One of the best and most iconic pieces of music on the show's score, which is played multiple times throughout the series, is known as Aang's theme, but it's not exclusive to him. It also plays when both Wan and Korra are seen going into the Avatar state for the first time. Number 91, which brings us neatly to the present, and to Korra. She was the youngest Avatar to learn of her true identity by quite a margin, learning at only the age of 4, whereas the next in line was Aang, who was told at age 12. Of course, Gyatso thought it was a mistake to have told Aang so young, when all of the other Avatars were only told at age 16. Number 92. Also, this makes Korra the only Avatar to discover it by her own merit, rather than being told by someone else. Number 93. Korra's name follows something of a tradition in the Avatar universe, namely having both a K and an A sound in it. Almost all the characters native to the water tribes have either one or both of these elements. Number 94. Much like Aang, Korra's name is spelled out on a wanted poster, though unlike Aang's, which makes basic sense, hers would have the characters translate to bandit drag, whatever that means. Number 95. The creators admit that they were struggling to come up with a name for the main character of the second series, until the owner of an eco-lodge they stayed in introduced them to his dog Korra. All it took from there was a spelling tweak. Number 96. Incidentally, young Korra was voiced by a girl called Korra Baker. Number 97. It was an uphill struggle for the creators to convince Nickelodeon that the main character for the next show would be female. They had to make what amounted to the first episode and run it by focus groups to prove to the studio it wouldn't be an issue. Number 98. Her go-to excuse when caught in a place she shouldn't be is, "I'm looking for the bathroom," as she's seen using it at least twice. Number 99. Unlike Aang, who appears in all but one episode of his show, he's absent in Zuko alone, Korra does actually appear in every single episode of her own show, though it should be noted that her appearances in both The Sting and After All These Years were extremely brief, and both limited to one line. Number 100. This also makes her the only character in The Legend of Korra to appear in every episode. Number 101. Contrary to Aang and Roku, who had the greatest difficulty mastering the element that was opposite to their native element, earth and water respectively, Korra had the most trouble learning airbending, because it was the most opposite to her personality. Number 102. Korra is one of 3 people to be directly responsible for the death of a family member, the others being Tarlok and Ozai. Unlike Ozai, however, Korra lamented the fact that she had to kill her uncle Unalaq, rather than being able to save him. Number 103. Unlike her 3 closest predecessors who were conflicted upon learning that they were the Avatar, Korra is actually excited at the prospect. This does come with the small caveat that we don't see the actual moment she learns though. But even after a little bit of time to process the news, Kyoshi, Roku, and Aang were not looking forward to being the Avatar. Number 104. Unlike what we see all of the previous Avatars doing, Korra is actually a fairly skilled fighter in unarmed combat. Number 105. Korra and Aang were both blood-bent on multiple occasions, and while both broke free of it on their own, Aang had to resort to the Avatar state for doing so, while Korra did it without the extra boost of power. Number 106. But for all the things she's good at, and you feel inadequate by comparison, take comfort in the knowledge that Korra is still a terrible driver. Number 107. Of all the avatars, only Aang and Korra are heard speaking in the Avatar state, and while Aang does so by speaking with the voice of all the past avatars at once, Korra speaks in tandem with Rava. And that's it! 107 facts about the 9 named avatars, even if their relative fame differs from character to character. Who is your favorite? And what's your favorite fact about them that we didn't include on this list? Be sure to let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our new videos that we upload every week. I'm Adrian, thanks for watching, and remember, Frederator loves you.